Some cars earn a place in history because they changed the world. And then there are these. 13 cars so bad, so catastrophically flawed, that they destroyed reputations, bankrupted companies, and in some cases actually killed people. These are not just ugly cars or slow cars. These are cars that should have never left the factory. Cars that engineers warned about, that accountants overruled, and that millions of Americans ended up paying for. And the scary part? Some of the exact same mistakes these automakers made decades ago are being repeated right now in brand new vehicles sitting on dealer lots today. So buckle up. We are counting down the 13 worst cars in United States history, and by the end of this video you will understand exactly why some of these names still make engineers cringe. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the time, because we break down the stuff about cars that nobody else is willing to say out loud. Hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Number 13. The 2003 Saturn Ion. Saturn was supposed to be General Motors' answer to Honda and Toyota. A fresh brand, built from scratch in Spring Hill, Tennessee, designed to prove that America could build reliable, affordable small cars. And for a while, it worked. People loved Saturn. Then the Ion showed up and destroyed everything. The build quality was atrocious. The interior felt like it was assembled from leftover plastic bins. Road noise was unbearable at highway speeds. Automotive journalists who drove the first press cars called it the worst car they had ever tested. One reviewer said you could kick the body panels and your foot would get stuck in the gaps. The Ion was supposed to refresh the brand. Instead, it accelerated Saturn's death. The nameplate was killed in 2007, and the entire Saturn brand was shut down 3 years later. The Ion did not just fail as a car, it killed a company. Number 12. The Chrysler PT Cruiser. When the PT Cruiser launched in 2000, people actually loved the retro styling. Dealers had waiting lists. Chrysler thought they had a hit, and then reality set in. The turbocharged version was gutless and plagued with reliability issues. The non-turbo version was even worse, painfully slow with a 4-speed automatic that seemed confused about which gear it wanted to be in at any given moment. The interior was cheap, the driving dynamics were terrible, and within a few years, the PT Cruiser went from trendy to embarrassing faster than almost any car in history. By the end of its run in 2010, rental car lots could not give them away. It became the automotive equivalent of a participation trophy. Number 11. The DeLorean DMC-12. Yes, the time machine from Back to the Future. And that movie is the only reason anyone remembers this car fondly, because in real life, the DMC-12 was a disaster. It looked incredible with stainless steel panels and gull-wing doors, but underneath the style was a car that could barely get out of its own way. The engine was a French-built V6, making about 130 horsepower, and it took more than 10 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. The gull-wing doors leaked in the rain, and they could trap you inside if the electrical system failed. The car was built in Northern Ireland by workers who had never manufactured automobiles before. Quality control was a fantasy. The company went bankrupt in 1982 after producing fewer than 9,000 units, and founder John DeLorean was arrested in a cocaine trafficking sting. The car's legacy was saved entirely by a screenwriter, not by engineering. Number 10. The Ford Mustang II. The original Mustang is one of the most iconic American cars ever made. The Mustang II is one of the most hated. Launched in 1974 during the oil crisis, Ford decided to shrink the Mustang down and base it on the Pinto platform. Let that sink in. They took one of the most legendary nameplates in automotive history and bolted it onto their cheapest economy car. The base model came with a 4-cylinder engine making 88 horsepower. It was slow, it was heavy for its size, and it looked nothing like the car that had defined American muscle. Ford sold a decent number of them because gas was expensive and people were scared. But the moment the crisis eased, the Mustang II became a punchline. To this day, Mustang enthusiasts pretend this generation does not exist. Number 9. The Cadillac Cimarron. In 1982, Cadillac executives thought they had a brilliant idea. Take the Chevrolet Cavalier, one of the cheapest cars in GM's lineup, put leather on the seats, add a Cadillac badge, and charge twice the price. That was the Cimarron. It had the same weak engine, the same budget suspension, and the same economy car driving feel. But it cost nearly twice what a Cavalier cost. Buyers saw through it immediately. The Cimarron was not just a bad car, it was an insult to everyone who had trusted the Cadillac name. Sales were embarrassing. By the time Cadillac discontinued the Cimarron in 1988, the brand's market share had collapsed to around 2%. It took Cadillac over a decade to recover from the reputation damage this single car caused. Now, before we get to number 8, and trust me, the cars only get worse from here, I want to tell you about something. We have a WhatsApp channel where we share tips, warnings, and breakdowns that do not always make it into a full video. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on what to buy, what to avoid, and how to protect yourself, the link is in the pinned comment. Join the channel and you will never miss a thing. Alright, let's keep going. Number 8. The Oldsmobile Cutlass with the 5.7 diesel V8. This one did not just ruin a car, it ruined diesel engines for an entire generation of American buyers. In the late 1970s, General Motors decided to offer a diesel option in its passenger cars to capitalize on fuel economy concerns. Instead of engineering a proper diesel from the ground up, they took their existing 350 cubic inch gasoline V8 and converted it. The block could not handle diesel compression. Head gaskets blew constantly. Crankshafts broke. Fuel injection pumps failed. When General Motors submitted these engines for California emissions testing, the cars could not even finish the test because the engines kept destroying themselves. The failure rate was catastrophic. Owners were furious. Lawsuits piled up. And the lasting damage was that American consumers swore off diesel cars entirely. It took nearly 30 years before automakers could even attempt to sell diesel passenger cars in the US again. One lazy engineering decision poisoned an entire fuel type for a generation. Number 7. The 1981 Cadillac 5864. Cadillac tried to be ahead of its time with this one, and it backfired spectacularly. The concept was cylinder deactivation. The 368 cubic inch V8 engine could run on 8, 6, or 4 cylinders depending on driving conditions, managed by an early computer system. In theory, it was brilliant. In practice, the technology was nowhere near ready. The computer could not keep up with real-world driving. The engine would surge and stumble as it tried to switch between modes. Drivers reported the car bucking and lurching at highway speeds. Many dealerships quietly disconnected the system entirely and left the engine running on all 8 cylinders full-time, because it was the only way to make the car drivable. This was Cadillac's flagship year for technology, and it became a punchline. The truly painful irony is that cylinder deactivation is now standard across the industry, but in 1981, Cadillac proved that being first means nothing if the technology is not ready. Number 6. The Chevrolet Corvair. This is the car that made Ralph Nader famous. The Corvair, produced from 1960 to 1969, featured a rear-mounted, air-cooled, flat-six engine, which was unusual for an American car. The real problem was the rear suspension design. The early models used a swing axle setup that could cause the rear wheels to tuck under during hard cornering, sending the car into uncontrollable oversteer. Multiple fatal accidents were attributed to this handling defect. Nader's 1965 book Unsafe at Any Speed focused heavily on the Corvair and essentially launched the modern consumer safety movement. General Motors eventually redesigned the suspension for later models, but by then the damage was done. The Corvair's name had become synonymous with danger. It was discontinued in 1969. One car changed the entire regulatory landscape of the American auto industry. Number 5. The Pontiac Aztek. Often called the ugliest car ever mass-produced, the Aztek arrived in 2001 and immediately became a cautionary tale in automotive design. General Motors intended it to be a crossover before crossovers were mainstream, blending SUV capability with car-like efficiency. What they delivered looked like two different vehicles welded together at the beltline. The front end said one thing, The rear end said something completely different, and neither of them said anything good. Beyond the looks, the Aztek was poorly built, had cheap interior materials, and drove like the compromise it was. It sold so badly that General Motors pulled the plug after just 5 years. Pontiac itself was dead by 2010, and while the Aztek was not the only reason, it certainly did not help. The one cultural redemption, Breaking Bad turned it into Walter White's car, which was intentionally chosen because it looked pathetic. Number 4. The Chevrolet Vega. General Motors launched the Vega in 1971 to compete with imported economy cars, and on paper it looked promising. In reality, it was a rolling quality control disaster. The aluminum engine consumed oil at an alarming rate. Some owners reported adding a quart every single fill-up. The body rusted so aggressively that dealers reported brand new Vegas arriving at showrooms already showing corrosion. The throttle had a tendency to stick open while driving, and in the performance-oriented GT version, the engine could backfire hard enough to burst the muffler, which would then heat the fuel tank and cause fuel leaks. There were reports of car fires. One owner famously described trading in his 1969 Chevelle SS396 for a Vega during the gas crisis as one of the worst decisions of his life. General Motors eventually fixed most of the issues by 1974, but the Vega had already cemented itself as one of the most unreliable American cars ever built. Number 3. The Yugo GV. Technically built in Yugoslavia but sold in the United States starting in 1985, the Yugo earns its place on this list because of what it did to American buyers. At just $3,990, it was the cheapest new car on the market, and you got exactly what you paid for. The engines and electrical systems failed constantly. The build quality was so poor that basic components would fall apart within months of ownership. Some models did not even include floor carpeting as standard. Car and Driver eventually named it the worst car in history. The Yugo was pulled from the US market in 1992, but not before ruining the idea that a cheap new car could still be a reliable one. For an entire generation, the name Yugo became shorthand for anything cheaply made and destined to fail. Number 2. The Ford Edsel. The Edsel might be the biggest commercial failure in automotive history. In the mid-1950s, Ford spent what would be the equivalent of over $3 billion today on research, design, tooling, and production for a brand new mid-price lineup. They booked an hour of primetime CBS television to unveil it. They called it E-Day. The hype was enormous. And then the car arrived and America shrugged. The styling was polarizing. The pricing did not make sense in a market that was shifting toward compact cars, and early models were plagued with quality issues. Ford had estimated they would sell 400,000 units per year. They sold fewer than 120,000 total before pulling the plug after just 3 years. The Edsel proved that no amount of marketing can save a product that does not meet the market where it is. For decades after, the word Edsel was used in business schools as the textbook example of a product launch failure. Number 1. The Ford Pinto. There is no other choice for the top of this list. The Ford Pinto, produced from 1971 to 1980, is the most infamous car in American history. Not because it was slow or ugly, because it was a death trap. The fuel tank was positioned behind the rear axle with almost no protection. In a rear-end collision, even at moderate speeds, the tank could rupture and the car could burst into flames. Ford knew about this. Internal documents revealed that the company had calculated the cost of fixing the design flaw versus the projected cost of lawsuits and settlements from deaths and injuries. Ford decided it was cheaper to pay the lawsuits. When that calculation became public during court proceedings, it became one of the most damning corporate ethics scandals in American industrial history. The exact number of deaths attributed to Pinto fuel tank fires remains disputed, but the estimates run into the hundreds. Ford eventually issued a recall to add a protective shield, but the damage to human life and public trust was already done. The Pinto did not just fail as a car, it became a permanent case study in what happens when a corporation puts profit over human safety. So there you have it. 13 cars that should have never reached the public, from corporate greed to engineering arrogance to designs so bad they killed entire brands. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The same pressures that created these disasters, cost-cutting, rushing to market, and prioritizing numbers over quality, are still alive and well in the auto industry today. The vehicles look different, but the decision-making has not changed nearly as much as it should have. If this video opened your eyes, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to see it. Drop a comment and tell me which of these cars surprised you the most, or if there is a car you think I missed. And if you want the insider tips, the warnings, and the breakdowns we share only with our community, join us on the WhatsApp channel. The link is in the pinned comment. Tap it, join, and you are in. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.